stoned, unquote. If that's an example of God's protection, deliver me. 33rd. In Amos 7:11, Amos says, quote, Jeroboam shall die by the sword, and Israel shall surely be led away captive out of their own land, unquote. Jeroboam was supposed to die by the sword. But 2 Kings 14:29 says, Jeroboam slept with his fathers, even the kings of Israel, and Zechariah his son reigned in his stead, unquote. In other words, 2 Kings clearly implies he did not die by the sword. The word slept is not the biblical word that is normally used for those who die by the sword. In fact, it's rarely used that way. 34th. In citing an Old Testament prediction, the speaker in John 7:52 said, quote, Search and look, for out of Galilee shall arise no prophets. Out of Galilee arises no prophet. Yet several of the most distinguished Jewish prophets, such as Jonah, Nahum, Hosea, and Elijah, were from Galilee. 35th. Genesis 49:13 predicts, quote, Zebulun, it's another province, shall dwell at the shore of the sea. He shall become a haven for ships, and his border shall be at Sidon, unquote. Two aspects of this prophecy are bogus. The borders of the province of Zebulun never extended to the sea and never reached to the city of Sidon. 36. One would be hard-pressed to reconcile the forecast in Genesis 8:22, which says, While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease, reconciling that with Genesis 41:54, which says, The 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, and dearth was in all lands. And Genesis 41:56, which says, The famine was all over the face of the earth, unquote. If seed time and harvest were not to cease, then how could there have been famine over all the earth? 37th. According to Jeremiah 22:18-19, the Lord said that Jehoiakim would be buried with the burial of an ass, drawn and cast forth from the gates of Jerusalem. And Jeremiah 36:30 says, quote, His dead body shall be cast out in the day to the heat, and in the night to the frost, unquote. But 2 Kings 24:6 says that Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, unquote. If this prophecy was fulfilled as predicted in Jeremiah, it's hardly likely that the compilers of the book of Kings would have misled their readers by using a word like slept, which implies the opposite. 38th. As a spokesman for God, in Amos 7:14 and 7:17, Amos told Amaziah that his wife would be a harlot in the city, and his sons and daughters would fall by the sword, and he would die in a polluted land. Yet Amaziah's son Uzziah followed him on the throne and died a leper. So he could not have been a child who was slain by the sword. In addition, 2 Kings 14:19 says Amaziah was slain in Lachish in Judah, which was no more polluted than any other territory in the age of the prophets. 39th, and lastly, Amos 8:9 says, quote, It shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and I will darken the earth in the clear day." Unquote. It's supposedly a prediction of events that were to accompany the crucifixion, as related in Matthew 27:45, which says, quote, "Now from the 6th hour, noon, there was darkness over all the land to the 9th hour." Unquote. Defenders of the Bible constantly accuse their attackers by taking verses out of context when that is a tactic upon which they rely repeatedly. And Amos 8:9 provides a good example of the same. They neglected to read the verse after Amos 8:9, which says, quote, "I will bring up sackcloth upon all loins, and baldness upon every head." This verse shows other events were to occur simultaneously. When did all loins wear sackcloth, or all heads exhibit baldness? That completes our list of inaccurate prophecies for today. In our next program, we'll continue our litany. We'd like to conclude today by reading part of a letter from York, Pennsylvania. The author says, quote, I agree with Christians who view evil as a problem of human nature rather than a problem of our environment. While environment is certainly a factor in how our nature expresses itself, our moral predicament today is nevertheless a function of the propensity of human beings, whether rich or poor, to be lustful, greedy, proud, and violent. These evils arise from within the hearts of men. They are not imposed from without. Unquote. I responded to this by saying, here, as much as anywhere else, our views differ drastically from those of Bibuses like you. You say the world will never improve until you get the garbage out of people, while I say the world will never improve until you get people out of the garbage. It's not a matter of bad people making bad material conditions. It's a matter of bad material conditions making bad people. You have the cart before the mule. Where do you find the most crime, the most violence, the most antisocial behavior, the most profanity, the most debilitating addictions, the most of that which is undesirable? It's in the poorer sections of society throughout the world. Where do you find police patrolling the most? Where crime is greatest, and that's in poverty-stricken areas. You can't bear a child in a dump, raise him in a slum, restrict his every movement during maturation by removing everything material that allows him to learn, enjoy life, and respect others, and still expect him to display the manners of Emily Post and Amy Vanderbilt. It just isn't going to happen. No amount of preaching and sermonizing is ever going to outweigh material conditions, which primarily includes heredity and environment, that are causing the opposite behavior. When words are saying one thing, while every aspect of material conditions are demanding the opposite, people are going to obey the latter. That's virtually a foregone conclusion. Try teaching the evils of prostitution to a woman who has children to feed and can't find a decent job paying anything comparable to what she can make in one night walking the streets. On the other hand, try teaching those who are reasonably well off to engage in criminal behavior and see what happens. They'll nearly always ignore you, not only because people with something at stake aren't about to jeopardize their status, but also because material conditions have been channeling them in the right direction. That completes our presentation, and please join us later for the 62nd edition of Biblical Errancy Commentary, when we'll continue showing why the Bible is nothing more than the flawed composition of some fallible human beings. Thank you for listening.